Upon hearing the words, "the time is now," Duncan Cameron unleashed a monster from his subconscious. But it wasn't in the lab, it was somewhere on the base. Preston Nichols describes it as at least 10 feet tall, hairy, and vicious. It was tearing through the base, attacking everything in its path. Nichols' supervisor ordered the power generators shut down, but that had no effect. The creature was still wreaking havoc, building after building. The Montauk transmitter was shut down. That didn't work. The main power coming from the utility company was cut. That didn't work. Power was still on, being generated from somewhere. And worst of all, the creature was still on the loose. Nichols grabbed an acetylene torch and went to the building that housed the transmitter control unit. He yanked out every wire he could reach. The building lights went out, but the transmitter continued to work, and he could hear distant screams coming from somewhere on the base. Nichols then took the torch to the transmitter itself. He cut wires, conduits, even large chunks of equipment. He destroyed everything he could. He says the burn marks can still be seen to this day. Finally, the portal Duncan Cameron created closed, and the creature vanished. And for Preston Nichols, this would be the end of the Montauk Project. But for many of the victims, this was only the beginning.
Since the late 1940s and early 50s, the government has had the capacity to what I call bend time.
The Montauk Project ran from the early 70s until 1983, and the story does sound far-fetched. But there are many people who say Preston Nichols is telling the truth. While the Montauk Project was operating, it needed a constant supply of people for its experiments. Unfortunately, most of these were children, usually boys between 10 and 15 years old. These children became known as the Montauk Boys. Montauk Boys were usually runaways or taken from troubled homes, like families suffering alcoholism, drug addiction, or abuse. One of the Montauk Boys is named Stuart Swerdlow. And as a boy, Swerdlow recalls having dreams of waking up in a dark room strapped to a hospital bed surrounded by strangers. And the room was dark and damp, and the walls were made of rock. And Preston Nichols did say that the experiments took place deep underneath the Montauk Air Force Base. One disturbing goal of the Montauk Project was to create an army of children whose minds could be programmed and controlled. Then they could be activated at any time. They would carry out any mission, no matter how horrible, and not remember any of it. Montauk Boys have been linked to events like Columbine and the Oklahoma City bombing. In order to prepare the children for programming, their minds had to be broken down. This included starvation and torture. They received electric shocks, they were submerged in cold water to the point of almost drowning. And this was done day after day until the child's mind was ready to accept new programming. And many other men have come forward claiming to be one of the Montauk Boys. One said he was forced to take LSD in what became known as the acid house. Another said his body was used as a sort of generator to feed psychics sitting in the Montauk chair, usually Duncan Cameron. As you would expect, many children did not survive this phase of the experiment, and they're said to be buried somewhere deep under the base, still presumed missing after 40 years.
They wanted a large number of programmed boys to be used for mind control operations.
The experiments at Montauk affected everything in the area. Television and radio signals were disrupted. Animals behaved strangely. In 2008, this animal washed up on the beach at Montauk. It's been called the Montauk Monster. What is this? Now, I should also point out that directly across the Long Island Sound is Plum Island, the location of the Animal Disease Center. Rumors say this island has been used for animal experiments, biological weapons, and even testing human-animal hybrids.